Okay. Thanks, Neil.
Okay, kind of going off what Avi said, there's a couple things I want to bring up. First off, the idea that, selling weed's going to give us a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. What stops people from selling on the street still without all the government taxes and extra money? Zach said that's going to be like some $100 thing, and I'm not going to trust my 10th grade friend to sell it to me. There's a couple issues with that. First off, you have very much inflated the price of weed. Marijuana is a very cheap drug, relatively speaking, and it's just not very expensive to buy. So yes, I would trust somebody to give me that, especially because weed has a very distinct smell. The only way they could possibly rip me off on my marijuana is like, oh yeah, this says 12% THC, and I smoke it, it's like, oh dude, it's 8%, what the hell? That's not gonna happen. You still get high, it's just not a big deal. Second off, and just to give you an idea, like weed practically grows itself. Like you just like throw that stuff down and make sure it gets some sunlight, it'll pretty much grow on its own. Marijuana is a very strong plant. Cannabis it's a very strong plant. It doesn't need a lot of care, and it grows really easily. So yes, getting a lot of it and selling it under, beyond the influence of the government, it would not be that difficult. Second off, how many of you guys actually know how weed works? Like, what does marijuana do to your brain? How many people actually know?
Smoke it, man.
You smoke it?
Yes, you smoke it, and this nice little chemical called THC, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, goes up to your brain. And what that does is it propagates the release of, it has multiple effects. It's a minor hallucinogen, it makes you relax, there's no such thing as an angry stoner, typically speaking, so forth, so forth. But one of the major effects of THC is that it releases this chemical called serotonin. Happiness. Essentially, it's one of the hormones in your brain that releases happiness. And what happens is that eventually, after continual use of weed, your brain stops being able to produce enough serotonin to match the body's requirements. It's called withdrawal. And if you guys have ever seen anyone undergoing withdrawal from anything, it's a terrible experience. They're shivering, they're puking, they are undergoing immense amounts of pain, they have no clue what's going on. Sure, maybe for a cancer patient who only has a couple months left to live, weed's not a big deal because you're not going to live long enough to start undergoing the withdrawal symptoms. But what about me, a healthy young teenager, 17 years old? The chances of me dropping dead in the next couple of months, not too high. The chances of me starting to undergo withdrawals, pretty high. And that's one of the major problems with legalizing weed is that we're not accounting for the long-term effects. And one of the reasons that you don't hear so much about it is because A, nobody wants to talk about it, and B, while it's illegal, it's harder to just use it freely. Like, I can't just walk down the street with my joint like, dude, weed.
Time is expired, baby. Thank you, yeah, okay, yeah.
Honestly, I completely disagree with what he said because he's saying that people are going to drop dead from smoking marijuana. Most of the deaths that are marijuana related are from misuse, which you can compare to alcohol, people drunk driving, or from people trying to evade, like the cops, for example, and that could cause reckless acting or driving. And so the causes of death from marijuana aren't caused by the drug itself, by the people using them and how they act with it. So if alcohol is legal, why not marijuana? And I agree what, what's his name? You said Ari? Oh, I agree what Avi said about how the fact that it's illegal makes it more appealing. Because if weed was illegal, just like with any other drug, people love to break the rules. People love to do something that could potentially get them in trouble because that adds excitement to their life. And if marijuana was legal, yeah, it'd still be fun, but it wouldn't have that same thrill factor that it is when it's illegal. And so that's my take on it.
I was just gonna say, like, from a perspective of like, well, I really don't smoke, but like, from a perspective of someone who will smoke, it's like, I would say, like the legalization of weed is only going to make the weed higher in prices because the government is gonna have the authority to tax it. And it's already hard to come up on some weed by yourself. When you're buying it, you gotta go to a friend, and that friend gotta go to a friend, and then that friend has to talk to somebody who owns everything, they gotta get it. So it's like, from a perspective of like someone who does smoke, if you saying you should legalize it, you're really like not considering the facts, because once you do legalize something, the government has the authority to tax you, and that's already going to make it harder to get it. So that's all I'm going to say.
I just want to touch back on the withdrawal symptoms. I'm actually in drug counseling right now, so I've been talking to doctors and people that know a lot about it, and there's actually no withdrawal symptoms like shivers, aches with typical harder drugs like heroin and cocaine. So just want to put that out there.
Alright, so we're going to go with what he said. I totally agree. Good for you being in counseling and all that. I had a family member who was addicted to cocaine for a while. When he got off of withdrawals, he was a wreck. He's one of the, handsomest, best looking guys, best oriented guys I've ever met, but he was a complete train wreck going through withdrawals. He was shivering, crying, sweating. He felt like there were spiders eating his skin. It was bad. And like he said, none of that happens for weed. You just kind of want it. You don't need it. You just kind of want it more after you stop smoking for a while. So read some biology books, It can probably help you out. And going off of that, I believe strongly that it may help the economy, but it's not going to fix the economy, like Shaun mentioned. But I believe in something called the trickle-down effect with the economy. See, that basically says that if a big company, like a big industry, gains power, then smaller industries will gain power. So if the weed industry builds, becomes really powerful, the munchies industry will also become powerful. So not only will we be getting money from weed, we'll be getting money from stuff like soda and pizza and brownies, like over at that table. So what I'm saying is that we could be helping the pizza economy and all that. Now, I want to go off of what somebody said, why weed was made illegal in the first place. Basically, back in about the 20s and the 30s, people started using hemp to make clothes and make materials, because hemp is a very powerful fiber that is very effective at doing things like that. I actually own hemp sandals, and they're awesome. So this started pissing off the lumber industry, because they wanted to start making things. So the lumber industry made up all this bullcrap about weed making you go insane and axing up your family. I've actually seen a commercial from the 50s where they tried to sell me that some guy smoked a joint, went completely apeshit, and axed his whole family apart. Alright, that sounds a lot more like a really bad acid trip than sitting around blazing with your buddies. So yeah, the effects of it are highly exaggerated, as our scholarly friend tried to point out. But, so yeah, really there's nothing wrong with it, it just makes us money.
Another excellent point that Shaun brought up is that legalization for more than just, just smoking it. I mean, because some people would propose they only legalize it for medicinal purposes. Some people say that doesn't go far enough, that we should do recreationally, because then it opens it up to hemp and paper and all sorts of other, common goods that we have. So, like, if we do legalize it, where should we draw the line between medicinal and recreation? So that's something to consider.
Assuming weed is legalized, or marijuana, what would happen, as I think a few people have brought up, is that the taxes would go up on it, and generally the consensus here is that the price would go up and the non-legal price would stay down, because the government, or you're paying more for the government weed than you are just the regular weed, if you want to call it. The problem with that is the people, the high honchos, the CEOs, who are pretty much in charge of administering the weed, they look and they say, why isn't our business doing well? Because people are buying all these low-price products that are not legal versus our legal products, which are like super high priced. So what they start doing is they start cracking down on all the groups that are selling weed like right now, all the ones that are like under the government, or not under the government. My point is that if it gets legalized, there will be more pressure on groups that are illegally selling weed right now.
Has everyone who wants food gotten food? Because there's a lot left.
Now it's time to get it.
And we would really appreciate it if more people bought it, because,
it helps us.
Yeah, it helps make us the
and we can have better debates and more food at future debates.
Yeah, so...
Okay, alright, I'll take this for
it'd be
now.
really nice So yeah, consider that. Go get some food if you want it. And all right, now I need another speaker. So you gotta keep it going. Next speaker. Chad, you want to speak?
I wanted to get everyone to check out next speaker.
All right, do I have another speaker? Come on, Avi Bir! From California!
Is anything recently said? No? Okay. Marijuana is part of America's history. Really? Alright. Yes, 100% really, but it is. Going back to Abraham Lincoln, who would sit on his porch and smoke weed, to the Declaration of Independence. The first draft was in fact written on hemp paper. Henry Ford, first model of the Model T, was made to run on hemp ethanol. As you can clearly see, this is so ingrained in our nation and the way that we function, from our capitalist nature to the way that we like to enjoy ourselves on the weekends by putting foreign substances in our bodies and then putting our bodies in other people's bodies. So naturally, it only makes sense for this to be legalized. So I ask you all to please vote yes on Prop 420, even though I don't think that's an actual prop. Just do it! Woo! No more speakers?
Chad.
Alright, so I'm Chad, again, I'm a senior. I really like your idea about the taxing of marijuana. See, some people, they're so for the taxation and legalization of marijuana that they forget a really important thing in our country's history. A while back, the Supreme Court said that the power of tax is the power to destroy. So you're giving the federal government or the state government the ability to make marijuana legal, and then you're going to give them the power to tax it, and then you're possibly giving the power to destroy that industry. And say they did tax it, and the tax marijuana was so high, you can easily go off the street and get regular marijuana from anyone else for cheaper. So this would not be making the problem any better, because you either don't legalize it and you get it off the street for cheap, or you do legalize it, you have the option from the government, or you have cheap marijuana. So either way, you're getting a cheap marijuana. Also, a lot of people are saying this will stimulate our economy and stuff. Hemp itself is completely legal, guys. Even Shaun said he had sandals made of hemp. When we legalize marijuana, doesn't mean we're legalizing the manufacturing of hemp products. That's already legal. When we say we're legalizing marijuana, we're saying we're legalizing the medicinal and the recreation use of it. So comparing hemp and marijuana, smoking marijuana, is like comparing drinking alcohol and cleaning alcohol. They're totally two different purposes, derived from the same thing, but have different purposes. So in my opinion, it's irrelevant to compare both of them, and that's some things that I think we should consider in this debate.